Hello and welcome to NIAGA Spotlight with me, Tamina Kauschi. NIAGA Spotlight takes us through the week in economic analysis and future affairs. Now this week on Future Affairs, we spotlight the topic of Zakat as social capital and empowering undergraduates via elder care. Now, to frame the issue, Malaysia's Zakat funds, the obligatory Islamic financial contribution collected each year, often reaches 740 million ringgit annually across states. Yet, its transformative potential as community credit system remains underutilized. Today, we investigate how Zakat, when deployed through innovative structured partnerships like a community credit fund, can directly empower vulnerable groups, boost youth economic resilience, and also strengthen elderly care. We spotlight community credit not as charity, but as a social financing tool, blending Islamic finance principles with youth and elder care policies, all while addressing Malaysia's dual crisis, in this case, student poverty and aging population care. Now, earlier this year, the Education Ministry confirmed that over 10,000 SPM candidates were absent from their national exams. Many of them were working gig jobs, some as food delivery riders, just to support their families. Thousands of our youth are clearly being priced out of higher education. That brings us right back to the millions of ringgit in Zakat, close to 800 million ringgit annually, as mentioned, and yet very little of this funding is structured to support sustainable long-term empowerment of students in need. Now, what if Zakat wasn't treated only as charity? What if it became community credit, a financial bridge, not a lifeline, which allows students to earn stipends through meaningful social service? That's exactly what one pilot project is attempting to prove, pairing students from underserved backgrounds with elderly care homes where they serve once a week and receive 10 ringgit an hour in return. This is not a handout, this is earned dignity. And it is a model we could possibly scale. We break down all the details now on NIAGA Spotlight with Ahmad Fatin Mohamed Suhaimi, CEO with Yayasan Kuis, as well as Professor Dr. Aishat Muniza, Senior Islamic Finance Advisor with UNFPA Malaysia. A very good morning to the both of you. Thank you for making time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So, Sheikh Fatin, if I could get started off by you telling us a little bit more about reframing Zakat, the foundation of it, right? Now, Zakat distribution and contributions are often viewed as transactional. How did Yayasan Kuis re-engineer your role to operate more as a community investment fund?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, Tamina. I mean, it's true that Zakat is often seen as a transactional act. Funds are given, needs are met, and that's it. But I mean, at Yayasan Kuis, we were inspired to think it differently. Can Zakat become a platform for service, dignity, and giving lasting impact? So that question came to us. I mean, in fact, through Prof. Aishat Muniza, she brought forward the idea. Can we reimagine Zakat as a form of a community credit, as you mentioned earlier, where students give their time and energy to society, and in return receiving support through Zakat. So we were immediately drawn to that vision. So from that discussion, we began shaping what we call as the Community Credit Fund, which is actually just launched last week in collaboration with the UNFPA Malaysia and funded by MBSP Bank. So in Yayasan Kuis, as a university-based foundation, I mean, we are closely aware of the student challenges, and many come from low-income households. They may receive Zakat occasionally, but still their financial stress remain. So affecting not just their studies, but I can say in terms of their confidence and hope for the future. At the same time, we observe also another group, our elderly group, especially those in care homes. So interestingly, many of our students in our university actively, involved in elderly programs. So that's when we saw the opportunity. What if we can connect the youth and elder, not through charity, but some sort of meaningful exchange. So that's how the Community Credit Fund turned into reality. So under this program, as also what you mentioned earlier, so students volunteer at elderly care homes. They spend time with the elderly groups, giving companionship, maybe just simple as reading books, offering conversation, and in return they receive a stipend, not as a salary, but as a recognition for their service, which is funded by Zakat. So, I mean, this initiative embeds values of ta'awun or mutual cooperation or mutual support, and also maslah, which is give public benefit. So we try to design this initiative, I mean, to create economic values in terms of enhance students' employability, and thus transforming zakat into a catalytic tool for inclusive development rather than just a passive handout.
Absolutely, and I truly see the interjections whereby which essentially students are earning through care and not through consumption. Thank you very much, Fatin. From there, Prof. Aishat, I'd love to move into you explaining to us a little bit more about the ethos behind this. Now, zakat, of course, in essence, it functions as a way to redistribute wealth amongst members of society, from the more fortunate to the less. Now, this pilot shows its potential as social capital. Let's spread the net a little bit wider and speak about Islamic finance principles and what type of paradigm shifts you feel are important to harness this kind of pilot project so that it can have even wider impact.
Thank you very much for that great question. Normally, as you have correctly pointed out, zakat is considered as a one-time giving charity act.
That's right.
But if we look at how zakat is perceived in the context of maqasidu sharia, we understand that it is not about giving. Because if we look at the recipients of zakat in the Quran, which is our holy book, we find that there are 8 legal recipients mentioned therein. And it's not like strict categories. For example, if we look at fi sabilillah category, in the way of helping the religion, in the way of serving the religion, in the way of achieving societal good, we can still spend zakat. And there is no limit to that, whereby we have restricted ourselves and our societies in interpreting it. But actually, we have the liberty to have a wider interpretation in categorizing who can fall under fi sabilillah category. So I believe that it's all about interpretation and finding the most deserved recipients of zakat in our societies, because sometimes all our energy is on how much we collect zakat.
That's
how
right.
much do we get on charity. So that is the shift we need. Why do we have to be so much concerned about how much we are receiving? It shouldn't be the KPI that solely we are concerned about. We should be more concerned about how are we spending the money we have collected as zakat or even charity, and what is the impact we are creating to the society by using those funds as social capital or whatsoever name we may call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I believe is that time has come for us to have better interpretations in terms of aligning zakat and other Islamic social finance tools to the societal needs we have, whether it is about elderly care, whether it is about B40 population, whether it is about not having enough financial products to serve unserved and underserved segments of the population. We still have the liberty to interpret the asnafs or the recipients of zakat in such a way that we should be able to stretch it and serve the community needs. And this is what exactly we are doing by pioneering this community credit fund with the help of a lot of stakeholders. So what I believe is that the kind of paradigm shift we need in this regard is, number one, we should redefine how zakat recipients are perceived.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be only focused on faqir and miskin. And secondly, we also need to transform our KPIs of zakat or charity from collection amounts to the impact we create in the society. And the last one which I want to highlight, which is the most important one, is we should not be focusing on giving. Rather than we should be focusing on programs that transforms lives. Our target should be a person who's receiving zakat today should be able to transform their lives for the better and should be a payer of zakat in future.
And I think you've actually hit the nail on the head with that, because speaking about economic empowerment and capacity building programs, our statistics show that as of 2022, only about 2 to 3% of Malaysia's total zakat collection actually goes towards that. So this might be a first step, but we do believe that it's going to be a big one that perhaps could show replicable scaled models across states in Malaysia, perhaps. Fatin, I'd like to pick up on a point which Prof. Aishat had mentioned, and talking about the stigma which often surrounds students who do receive zakat. Let's talk about how community credit fund like the one by Yayasan Kuis UNFPA helps to reframe recipients as active contributors back to society, not simply beneficiaries. And what is student feedback insofar telling us about this?
Thank you. It's true, I mean, that many students do feel a sense of stigma when they're receiving zakat. So they worry about how others will see them as needy, as dependent. And we know this can, affect their self-esteem, even their willingness to apply for the assistance that they actually need. So from the beginning, we designed the community credit fund to reframe the role of the students, like what you mentioned earlier, which is from a passive recipient to an active contributor. Through this initiative, community credit fund, students, they are not just receiving zakat. They are giving back to the community through social service, engaging with elders and offering their companionship. The stipend they receive is not just a charity, but it is a recognition for their care and commitment. For me, that shift of mindset is powerful. They are not just living, but they are also actively contributing. So, although the first batch of the students will only begin their placement by the end of this July, the early response that have already we received, I think for me is very encouraging. In terms of the selected students have shared with us how proud they are to be chosen, not just to receive support, but to have the chance to serve to the elders. So this kind of feedback for me tells us that the initiative is helping to break the stigma. So students feel more valued, not pitied. And also they feel more empowered and not to be feel dependent. And that's exactly what we hope for this community credit fund, for which is to use zakat in a way that restores dignity, builds character, and strengthens the spirit of community service.
And also the students are very importantly receiving training, they are being evaluated, and they will actually be able to put the service hours that they're putting towards elder care into their CVs as work-related experience, right? Yeah, so that also fundamentally ties back into enhancing the Maqasid al-Sharia perspective too, for intellect, for life, for dignity. Moving deeper into that, Prof. Aisha, can I ask you about the fact that, so Malaysia, of course, channels billions into Islamic finance, but it's rarely positioned as a formal development mechanism. What opportunity do we have now at this juncture in 2025 to have this as an evaluation, to have zakat, wakaf, infaq and all to be integrated into national human capital policies? Perhaps it's a missing dimension, and what can help to catch up everyone who's been left behind, right?
Yeah. I believe that Malaysia is leading in Islamic social finance if you look at it from a global context.
Right.
If you look at what Securities Commission Malaysia, Bank Negara Malaysia has pioneered in this regard, they have actually integrated social finance into the Islamic financial system. For instance, if you look at Bank Islam Sadaqah House, it is a very good initiation by the bank, which shows that it's not about Islamic commercial finance that always should be considered or in forefront when it comes to a commercial financial institution. And today, globally, the Sadaqah House initiative has been acknowledged. For example, in the Maldives recently, the central bank has initiated again a similar kind of a model, whereby even in the Maldives, there is a framework whereby you have to have Islamic financial institutions dealing with Islamic social finance sector as well. So what I believe is that the overall framework to integrate Islamic social finance to Islamic commercial financial institutions are found in Malaysia. However, what we are lacking today is the interpretation of how we can widen the horizon of using zakat or charity funds to those who are in need. I believe that if we were to have a better output in terms of deploying zakat money, the best way would be we have to come up with a proper strategic plan to find the most deserved recipients, to do a need assessment, and to ensure that the aid through charity mechanisms, through zakat mechanisms are delivered to the most needy in our society without them asking for it. Because currently the trend is, whether it is for educational purpose, health purpose, or whatever the purpose, the asnaf is the one who should come forward and declare themselves as asnaf, and then only there will be an assessment carried out to see whether they are eligible to receive this assistance or not.
Correct.
So what I believe is, at national level, what we have to focus right now is finding the most deserved recipients, invest on that. And once we identify who are the most deserved recipients, the aid through zakat and charity must be delivered to them without them asking for it. And that would be the day where we could transform people's lives and ensure that zakat has achieved its maqasid sharia.
And I see clearly how the current policy disconnect can actually be closed quite rapidly if our national development planning was also cognizant and wanted to make full use of the available zakat funds through the manner in which you've described. I can also perhaps think of the way in which perhaps in the near future zakat boards may also be able to operate as catalytic funds. There are quite a few interesting areas of economic opportunity and employment for youth. We're talking about social care, apprenticeships like what you have been doing. There's also green youth employment, and very often those from the underserved backgrounds, those youth are the ones who have least access to the training and the technical skills which would make them employable in this new and firm future of work that's actually already here. Thank you, Prof. Aishat. From there, Fatin, I'd like to go back into the pilot program itself. Now, this pilot targets 25 students for a starter. And what is your vision, hopefully, for scaling this model across universities and maybe even states in Malaysia? And what kind of structural or even faith-based governance issues need to also be addressed to ensure all goes smoothly?
Okay, thank you. I mean, yes, the pilot starts small, I mean, with just 25 students. But I mean, from the very beginning, our vision has gone far beyond that number. I mean, also with the support of UNFPA Malaysia and our strategic partners, we are not limiting this initiative only to Malaysia alone. After the pilot, we plan to lay the groundwork for scaling. Maybe first we started with other universities, and also we go to other states in Malaysia, and then globally, and adapting it to the diverse socio-economic and cultural context in Muslim majority countries. So our aim is to create a globally replicable zakat for service framework rooted in Islamic values but responsive to local needs. So more significantly, in collaboration with UNFPA Malaysia, so we are working toward establishment what we call as a community credit exchange. A bold new platform, I mean, where community service is formally tokenized and valued. The idea is simple. Just as the world has what we call as carbon credits for offsetting environmental impact, we envision a community credit system where acts of care, tutoring, social work can be quantifiable credit. So this credit can be bank, trade, or even offset. For instance, an institution that lacks manpower could support another by funding community credit activities. So it's a mechanism to incentivize dignity-based volunteerism and to reframe unpaid care as a measurable contribution to society. To mainstream this, of course, we will need support from religious governance bodies to endorse the notion that zakat can support this kind of structured service, not just financial need. but with clear Sharia parameters, strong impact metrics, and digital accountability tools, this model, I think, is not only scalable, but is a transformative model.
Exactly. And also another interesting data point that we have is Malaysia overall has roughly about 500,000 tertiary students at any given point. If only 5% of those, who are of course Muslims, from those undergraduates were then engaged in service-linked Zakat programs, that actually represents perhaps even tens of millions of Zakat-related funds, which are then dispersed accordingly and for direct and actionable turnover at good. However, it's also an opportunity perhaps for state-level Zakat fragmentation to also be quickly addressed so that everything becomes perhaps more digitized. There is a better framework for tracking and accountability. And as Prof. Aishat was mentioning, it of course makes sure that the funds go out from identified parameters, not at the request of the asnafs. Prof. Aishat, I'd also like to go into discussing a little bit about the fact that, of course, most underserved graduates, they would also then be coming from B40 households. These remain excluded from formal credit lines. Now, how feasible is it then to develop Zakat-linked Sharia-compliant, perhaps microcredit systems for such students?
Definitely, there is scope and potential for that in our societies. But the thing is, when we look at it from a profitable perspective or an angle, it becomes something which is not so feasible to most of the commercial financial institutions out there. This means that more work needs to be carried out in terms of catering this needy segment of the population through Islamic social finance. I believe that there is a strong potential in Malaysia and elsewhere in the world where we have the same issue, and it can be resolved through, for example, we can come up with micro muloraba models or musharaka models, or even we can have micro different types of financial models being implemented across not only through Islamic financial institutions, but they should be led by the universities themselves. For instance, in the case of University Islam Selangor, it is not the university per se who's dealing with the community credit fund, right? They have Yayasan Kuis, which is a designated foundation that deals with those students who are in need to provide them scholarships and better opportunities in terms of sustaining their financial needs while they are at the university. So with this model, what type of extension do we need? What we need in terms of extension here is coming up with innovative Islamic social finance tools or models that could be implemented there. You call any type of Islamic social finance tools, for example, Zakat, Sadaqah, Waqf, or even commercial financial tools, for example, Mularaba, Musharaka, Ijara, whatever the name we have here, it has the potential to be used as a social finance or microcredit type of tool as well. So if you ask me what is lacking right now is, I think, the willingness. We need to change the attitude of giving. We need to ensure that we create societies where every student, every citizen is responsible for their own needs. There shouldn't be a perception that if you are in need, one-time assistance should be provided.
Because it also impacts your non-material well-being as well.
Exactly.
Could I have perhaps a short and brief insight from you as well, looking at the fact that this model in particular, it is funding students to provide companionship, care, work which is quite often feminized and unpaid. Now, could Zakat serve as a tool perhaps to formally value such unpaid care labor that is taken on by women, but within the Islamic economic frameworks?
Definitely. Again, it's about our interpretation and how willing are we to serve this unserved and underserved segment of the population. What I believe is that if we were to come up with a more feminine Maqasidu Sharia approach, definitely we can interpret fi sabilillah category of zakat in such a way that anything that is disrupted in our society, anywhere we need help, financial assistance, we could utilize zakat as a resource that is transformational, so that people will not be begging for help, or they might not be neglecting the societal care needs and going for work, sacrificing the bigger picture. In the bigger picture, what we see is sacrificing the national development in such a way that there are neglected segments of the population who are uncared for, because there is no holistic system to cater for them. So in short, of course, we are able to use zakat in such a way that we could take care of those who are taking care of like elderly population, even children, but who are not recognized in terms of payments.
Clearly so. Thank you very much, Prof. Aisha, as well as Fatin, for the most interesting discussion. Well, today's discussion shows the potential of zakat to function not just as a religious obligation, but perhaps as a more strategic lever for inclusive development. If integrated into national education, elder care, and youth empowerment policies, models like this one could redefine the role of Islamic finance in Malaysia's socio-economic agenda. Well, that's all we have time for today on NIAGA Spotlight with me, Tamina Kausji. We'll see you again next week with more economic analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead.